This is Cutting Down the Nets, Sweet 16 edition. Excited to put rounds 1 and 2 behind us. We're going to go through 8 games. We are going to walk through the money lines, the spreads, all the sort of stuff that we saw in the first 2 rounds. Unlike round 2, we have real matchups, we have real spreads. These aren't hypotheticals anymore. And we're really going to break down these games and highlight ways that teams could outperform their median projection or risks that each team is carrying with the matchup in front of them. So let's get to it. Let's start with our sponsor, Coach Driscoll from This is just the best. Loyola versus the Beaver in game number 1. Loyola is a 6.5 point favorite, so right now I'm at the top of my screen. Patty's median projection is Loyola -3. So let's start with median projection. I have Loyola by 3. How would they outperform that median? 1, getting to the line. Oregon State has shown the propensity to foul, and Loyola is very good at drawing fouls, so you could end up free throwing your way above the median projection. Also, forcing jump shots. That is something that I think Oregon State has ran good on and may not be able to continue. So the further you keep Oregon State from the rim, the better. How would Oregon State outperform this number and possibly win the game or even come in lighter than 3? I think it goes with the bigs. Their bigs have been really good in the tournament and ball movement. So Ethan Thompson, excellent guard. He has not had like a true showcase game, in my opinion, yet. And this is probably not the spot for it, but that would be something that would really make a difference. You get a lot of ball movement versus Loyola defense. Keep spacing them out, find your opportunities. But it's an excellent defensive team, and you're really going to struggle on most days. What are the risks on the Loyola side? I think the biggest risk is pace. So if you're trying to cover 6.5, and you're trying to do it in what I think could be a 59-60 possession game, your margin of error is very low. If you're trying to cover 6.5 in a 75-80 possession game, you've got more margin for error there. There's more possessions for you to showcase your edge per possession. But when you shrink that down into a super slow game, the risk is pace. So Loyola wants to play slow. Oregon State will play slow too. It's not that that's not their style. What I'm saying is they're missing opportunities to showcase their edge on a possession level. Another risk is their offensive efficiency. It's fine, but they're really living off their defense, and then they end up scoring enough. And I think at this stage in the tournament, that carries some risk. Risks on the Oregon State side. They've been making a living off great matchups. Tennessee, they packed it in, forced Tennessee to shoot, and Tennessee was out of the game in the first 8 minutes, and then they only made it worse from there. Oklahoma State, a better shooting team, but they were able to use their zone packed in to prevent dribble penetration. I doubt they'll probably use some zone, but there's no way they use as much zone as they did, knowing with how good of a passer Krutwig is and Loyola's ability against the zone. Other risks are they've been running a little hot. They really have. And, I factored that in. I'm not overweighting their offense by any means, but a risk is that, you turn into a pumpkin. It happens. So overall, Patty likes Loyola by 3. 2.5 possessions in a 60 possession game is enough for me to be on the Beavers. Game number 2, Baylor, Villanova. I give Baylor a 70% chance of winning the game, Villanova a 30% chance of winning the game. I have bought into the Baylor defense. Had it been okay in the last 2 games, I would have continued to shade it the way I was shading it. So I was using numbers around 97 to 100 for their offense or their defensive efficiency. Their season-long numbers, closer to like 88 to 92. So I'm currently sitting at like a 91 for them. And I'm going to buy into Coach Drew's message that, look, our defense slipped because we never had any practices during that stretch. They finally got, quite a few in, and then they performed well against Hartford and Wisconsin, but their adjusted defensive efficiencies for those games were in the 70s and 80s. So I will buy in and cut my losses on Baylor. I'm back in, so maybe I'll look like a clown by the end of that for that decision. Overall, they're favored by 7.5. Patty's median projection is Baylor by 9.6. I think there are paths to Nova keeping this close, and there are paths to this being a 15, 18-point game. So let's talk about the paths. For Baylor to outperform their projection, 100% guard play. They have a huge edge on the perimeter, huge edge from three-point, huge edge if Archie Diacono is on the court, which would not be good for Villanova, so I doubt he plays much. Just a significant edge in that personnel. Villanova could outperform their median by, I don't know, this is going to be up to Jay Wright, but I think you have to slow it down. No one in the Big 12 really plays slow, and you need to add some variance to this to have a puncher's chance. So I expect Jay Wright to slow it down. Baylor can play either way. I mean, they've gone up and down, and they can play slow, but I think that's the path for Villanova outperforming their median projection. Risks on the Baylor side, if the defensive efficiency was not a blip, and it really reverts back to kind of that late February, early March struggle bus. Risks on Villanova's side is they will allow threes. They don't defend it that well, and Baylor can shoot you out of a game quickly. So I will be on the Bears for game 2. Game 3, Arkansas versus Oral Roberts. Oral Roberts got an Ohio State team whose defense was really struggling, and then they caught their offense on a pretty bad day. They then got to face Florida, who is a meh, like pretty much across the board. And Arkansas drew Colgate and then Texas Tech. Colgate played slow in the first half, fast in the second half, and then got run out of the gym. Texas Tech controlled the tempo for the most part. That game ended up with possessions in the 60s. So I think the story of this game will ultimately come down to how many possessions there are. Oral Roberts is fine playing faster. I would advise them not to in this game, but I don't know if it's really going to matter. So where this game is going to be won is transition buckets for Arkansas and rebounding. Those are extreme edges for Arkansas. Oral Roberts has 2 scores, and Arkansas can be beat from 3. And Oral Roberts shoots at an incredibly high rate of 3-pointers. So there's a story there of like a slower game. It's not going to be slow by any way, shape, or form, but don't play an 80-possession game versus Arkansas. And continue to just shoot a lot of threes and hope you run hot. I mean, that should be the map for pretty much every outman team. Arkansas, get up and down, get easy buckets, and limit Oral Roberts to 1 shot. That's the game. I don't see huge edges here, but that is something I would be looking for in that game is the pace, which would help. You saw it against Colgate. I mean, they were down early just with type of a half-court game, and they had to grind that out against Texas Tech a little bit too. But when you open it up, I think the Hogs are going to run. So, next game, Houston versus Syracuse. Patty has Houston by about 9. Vegas has a hearty point spread here. 6.5 is, I wish it was lower to be on the Houston side, but is what it is. So here's the story in this game. Syracuse's zone. It's always the story. And they have faced 2 teams that were perfect matchups to struggle against their zone, West Virginia and San Diego State. West Virginia has a couple shooters, Sherman, McNeil. San Diego State, decent from 3. But ultimately, this zone forces you into shots you don't usually take. These long twos, a few more threes than you're used to. The problem with Houston is they do that anyway. They're good at it, which not many teams are. But the whole premise of the zone is forcing you to do something you're not used to doing. And I think it's going to force Houston into doing something that they are used to doing. If Houston misses, there is an extreme rebounding advantage. Houston is second in the nation in offensive rebounds, and like most zones, Syracuse is 339 in the defensive rebound category. So, should be second chances for Houston. The risk is that Houston falls in love with the jump shots, and they're not falling because they're going to keep shooting long twos. That's what they do. Um, and sometimes that's part of their offense. Shoot a long two, get a rebound, and put it back. That's kind of how it goes. Houston is elite with 2-point, 3-point defense, so maybe controlling the Syracuse onslaught certainly would be good. And the Cougars are okay versus zone. Look, it's still an advantage for Syracuse, but it's all relative to a team's baseline, and I don't think there's a significant advantage here. How does Syracuse outperform their median? Continue to shoot like the GD Sun, like don't miss ever, and you're going to run pretty good. Tale as old as time. On to the next one, Gonzaga and Creighton. I don't love this game. I don't love this spread. I don't know. I'll probably end up doing the Gonzaga first half stuff that I always do and sweat it out, and I'll cover by like a point or a half point or something like that is kind of how this goes. So what are the paths here to success for, let's start with Gonzaga. So I think pace is really important to Gonzaga. That's when their offense is gelling the most. Straight up transition, secondary breaks, whatever it may be. They drug Virginia into a 70 possession game, which is really hard to do, and then hung 100 on them, which, I mean, think about that. That's just gaudy. They need to stay focused. Like, I could see, Creighton's got some on-ball defense. Zagorowski's fine on the ball, but Mahoney's real strong. He shut down Preston. I mean, just getting in Gonzaga's head and hanging around a little too long is a risk for Gonzaga. So outperforming their median by just playing Gonzaga ball and not getting caught up in something else. Creighton has a 44% three-point rate. So for them to outperform their median, hit them. The risks, if you don't, you are toast. What I would suggest is shooting 45 three-pointers versus Gonzaga and just hoping you run hot, because I don't see other paths. So we'll talk about teams with a lot of variance later when we get to like Alabama's one of them, and just the type of standard deviations I use for an Alabama versus a Gonzaga. So Gonzaga's offense is like a 127 offensive efficiency with a standard deviation of like 9, meaning it's likely that they are within 105 and 145, whatever that may be, okay? Alabama has an offensive efficiency of like 113 with a standard deviation of like 21. So there are paths for Alabama being like way above their median, but there's also paths for Alabama being way below their median. There is such a good floor for Gonzaga that you need a Gonzaga egg and the other team to outperform their median to really get there. So it's a Gonzaga lean for me. The number's awful, but there are paths for Creighton hanging around, which is gross, because I don't know. I'm not a Creighton guy at this point in the season. I thought they were cooked. We had them with Santa Barbara, and here they are. So we'll move on. Michigan, Florida State. You fade Michigan enough times, you're going to be right once is where I'm at. Good defensive teams. I think size becomes a factor in this game. All Florida State's dudes are like 6'8", and Michigan has two guards that are like 6 foot, 5'11". Not that they haven't seen that in their careers before, but I think that can be overwhelming at times. So overall, Vegas has Michigan by 2.5. I have Florida State by about point, 0.8. So Michigan's paths is packing it in, using their tremendous post defense with Dickinson to force jumpers, as Florida State has shown the ability to get to the rim. So you have to keep them away from the rim, force them into shots. Risk for Michigan, they do not force a lot of turnovers. They don't play pressure D. They get back, they pack it in. Like, it's not their style to force turnovers. And you're going to have to turn Florida State over to win this game. On the Florida State side, it comes down to post defense, which they are elite at. So, keeping Dickinson from a big game on a team that doesn't have livers is a path to winning. It's a path to outperform your median projection. Risks on Florida State they are not great at defending the three, and Michigan can get hot, and a risk with turnovers. So Florida State's turnovers aren't like, oh, we faced VCU's havoc and just got sloppy. More like just like half court skip passes and stuff like that. Like, just unforced errors is their issue. So those are the risks with Florida State, is just ball control and just being sloppy. I think if they play it straight up, don't settle for jumpers, pound it inside, keep Michigan away from the rim, it should be a good outcome for Florida State. But I don't know. I keep fading Michigan without livers, and I keep lighting money on fire. Next game. You know what? Before I get to this game, why don't I make this official? All right. So we're going to get to the part of the show where I fade Alabama again. Okay. So we have Bama by 6.5. Patty's median has Bama by 3. Look, guys, here's the deal with a high variance team. You only remember the craziness. You only remember them winning by 33 and 38 and 20, and you forget the other outcomes. So in Bama's last 15 games, they've had 3 losses, and then 5 games that they have won by less than 2 possessions. So that's 8 of their last 15 games have either been a loss or a 2-possession or less win. Also in those 8 games are 2 33-point wins and 2 18-plus wins. So 4 games by more than 18, 2 by more than 33. And this is just the beast you're dealing with. And it's you know what you're getting. But I think to just say they're always going to be elite and act like that standard deviation only goes up is fool's gold in the end. But how would they beat this 3? Well, they would make all those 3-pointers that they shoot, and the risk being missing those 3-pointers that they shoot. Easy game. So if they miss, you win, and if they make them, you don't. But you'll know quickly. How does UCLA outperform this and possibly beat Bama? They're probably going to have to limit transition to like 0, and they're good at that. They are effective at limited transition. Their risks are just individual matchups. Look at who they've got their first 3 games. Michigan State, who's inept offensively. Most recently, Abilene Christian, who is inept offensively. BYU, who is an extremely good offensive team, but like it's these traditional like guard, post play, wings, and Bama's just a different animal. But I think if you can limit transition, I watched a game this year where Bama got in a game that was frustrating them, and like John Petty got a T. And then like 2 minutes later, I swear he intentionally got a T because he just didn't want to be on the court anymore while they were losing. And maybe that's a competitor. Maybe it's a sign of some quit. Maybe it's full-on clown nose fading Alabama again. All right, next game. This is our final game. It's a Pac-12 matchup. I just hate this. Like I hate a conference matchup in a Sweet 16, but it is what it is. All right, Vegas has USC by 2. Patty's median projection is Oregon it's basically a pick 'em, okay? And it's possible this line moves more than other games, in my opinion. In the first game, USC out-rebounded Oregon 39-24, which is not a surprise. USC has the Mobley brothers, Mobley and Mobley. So that was the Muppet Christmas Carol reference of the day. Their tallest player is 6'7". So Oregon doesn't have everyone's 6'6" on Oregon's team. It's just the way they're built, their design, positionless basketball, that type of thing, and they got crushed on the boards. On top of that, the Trojans were hot from three. I think Tajidi had 6 threes or something like that, and USC made it look easy. So how do we outperform the median for SC? You use that size rebound advantage, and you get it done from the outside. And I think the game had been closer if they weren't so hot from the outside, but they were. They're hot. So it happens. So now let's look at the Oregon side. Their risks are preventing that from happening. But look at what they just did with Iowa. They said, Garza, take your 35 burger, and we're still going to shut down your perimeter. We're going to control all other pieces that we can. And they may end up doing that with the Mobley brothers too, and be like, yeah, take your points, and we'll find out elsewhere. So risks on the SC side are they can be a little sloppy. I mean, it's not a major concern, but Oregon took an Iowa team that does not turn the ball over at all and made them sloppy. So if you take a team that's semi-sloppy, Oregon make you super sloppy is where I'm going. And then if you want Oregon to outperform the median, I'd say give Dana Altman 6 days versus Andy Enfield 6 days, or however many days it's been. Look, I'm an Andy Enfield guy. Nothing was more fun than Doug City. He can build a program. He can recruit. But X's and O's, this is a severe mismatch. And that's what's made Oregon so good in so many tournaments is Dana Altman. So overall, I see a little value in Oregon, but what happened in their previous meeting is certainly repeatable. So I'm not sure where I'll go with this game. For sure, I'll likely bet on the coach and not 2 7-footers and put the clown nose back on. So that's the Sweet 16, 8 games. So I've given you where I'm likely headed in each of these games. I've highlighted ways to make those paths easier and risks associated with betting both sides of these games. Overall, that does not stray me away from my median projections, but it helps make your decisions on how you want to handle the games and how you think they'll go. So that is Sweet 16. The next time you'll see me is the Elite 8 pod, which should be fun as well. So thanks for stopping by. Cutting down the nets.